Yeah, and high achievers plateau, right? Plateau is normal. And
Yeah.
a lot of times that plateau happens when we're just 2 millimeters from the goal, right? It's like don't stop before you get to the pot of gold. You've probably heard it called the 2 millimeter shift or
Uh-uh. I haven't heard that.
so it's like, let's say we're 98%, like we're
Yeah.
living at an excellent level. Like
Yeah.
we're just churning and burning and getting stuff done and we're at 98%. But how do you go from great to extraordinary? That part is 2% because you already really did the 98%. So it's that 2 millimeter shift where achievers especially get stuck and plateau and either throw in the towel altogether, get a whole new outcome, whole new business plan, ditch it. Because
Welcome to the Audacious Founder Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Manning. This show is for the person who knows they're built for more. Welcome to your next level. Welcome to the Audacious Founder Podcast. My name is Melissa Manning. I am your host. I'm an audacious founder and your financial expert. Today, I am here with Chris Janssen. She is a leading results coach in performance and mindset and best-selling award-winning author. She has worked with hundreds of sought-after athletes, creatives, soldiers, entrepreneurs, and small businesses internationally to close the gap between where they are and where they want to be. As a board-certified coach with a master's in counseling psychology and 25 plus years experience, Chris excels in helping high-achieving perfectionists navigate performance pressure, overcome self-sabotage, rewrite narratives, and attach meaning to life events and circumstances beyond our control. Chris has written now a second book, Grace Yourself, How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want, and it's now available for pre-order wherever books are sold. Chris, welcome.
Melissa,
Welcome to the Audacious Founder Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And my goodness, this is so much stuff, this bio, right? Like, oh my God. Masters in counseling, psychology, board certified coach, soldiers, entrepreneurs. Oh my God, it's so much. Thing that I am relating to hard is the performance pressure and the perfectionism of high achieving people. And I swear to God, in the last maybe week or 2 weeks, I've talked about like the people that I have been talking to, I've used the phrase like driven person or high achieving person like multiple times. So I feel like I am that way and I'm surrounded by people like that.
Yes, and we usually are, right?
Yeah.
Like attracts like.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think you said that you are that person too, right? You're a
I
high.
am. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am that person and we are experts at serving the person we once were. So that's what I'm most qualified to do.
That's true. And before we got going, actually, Chris mentioned that she used to work for Tony Robbins. So before we dive into everything, can I hear a little bit of background on that?
Oh, how funny. Yeah, so I got my master's in counseling. I'm twice your age, by the way. So
Then.
I'm in my mid 50s. So way back when I got my master's in counseling, psychology, we didn't have coaching. That wasn't a thing. So I did some counseling, but it wasn't that traditional therapy counseling. I don't love continuing to talk about the past and the things that got me stuck. So I went to a Tony Robbins conference. Well, gosh, in college, I used to listen to him, but then I went to a conference and I thought, oh my gosh, this is all about moving forward. This about what works, not what hasn't worked in the past.
Right.
That was the first time I heard about coaching because he really is a coach. He's a strategist and a coach. And then by that time, there were online courses. So I went back to school and got my coaching certificate. And then I thought, I want to go work for Tony Robbins. So I did. And it is a grueling process
I
to
was
be
gonna ask, like, how
Tony
was
Robbins
that?
coach. I mean, my son was in the 82nd Airborne, and I compare interview process to his basic training. That's probably not fair.
I can imagine that though.
It's a 3 month process, and I
Oh
can't
my
say too
God.
much about it, but you get whittled down to the
Mhm.
very few people that get the job at the end of this process with thousands of applicants and hundreds that interviewed. And I don't say that to boost myself up at all. It's just I became very close with the other coaches, and the training itself was phenomenal. It was an intense experience. And Yeah, and then I coached for him for a year, and I had started Chris Janssen coaching and didn't really take
Wow.
it off, so I couldn't do both. So then I fabulous time working for him and then stopped and just focus on Chris Janssen coaching now.
Awesome. Okay, that's
Mhm.
great. Yeah, I mean, I've never been to one of his events, but I can imagine he would be a very demanding boss.
He's a very, very nice person.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay, so tell us about your business now, because I know before we started recording, you were mentioning how your book is not 100% exactly what your business is. So describe what your business is. And then if you'd like to start talking about your book now, please, because I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'll start by saying I wrote my first book's called Living All In: How to Show Up for the Life You Want.
Okay.
And that is really what I do. That is that I call that living all in. I call that my methodology, right? That has all my favorite coaching tools in it that I've developed over the years. And really what I do is I help, like you said, I help high achieving perfectionists navigate performance pressure, overcome self-sabotage, rewrite narratives. That's a huge part of what I do, and attach meaning to circumstances outside our control. There's things that happen that we can not control, right? Obviously. And we can control the meaning we attach to those circumstances. And that becomes our belief. That's really what I love doing. That's what I have found to be the biggest change in people, whether it's an entrepreneur or a performer or even a young adult going off to college for the first time. I coach quite a few young adults. It is that way we think about our circumstances and the story we write, the narrative we give ourselves around those things, because subconsciously those things are what sit with us for years, and that is our belief system. So that's really where I get to work with people. I wrote a second book called Grace Yourself: How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want, because I'm sober. I did have a little hiccup in that time and where I experimented with drinking again and then came back, but I'm very familiar with recovery. I've always kept it pretty private about myself, not because I was ashamed, just because it didn't really overlap with no one really needs to know, right? It didn't really overlap with anything I was doing, and I feel like I need to give people a reason why I don't drink. I'm just sort of have always been known as Chris doesn't drink, right? And that could be for a zillion reasons. A lot of people don't drink, especially now, right? Because it's a health trend to not drink. I never shared, except for my close friends, why I didn't drink.
Yeah.
And so I share that in this new book. And I think I mentioned I had that hiccup where I thought, well, I don't really have a problem with this. I think I'm a person that can drink, and that didn't go well. And I share that in the book. But that led me to read the book because I thought, oh my goodness, this thinking is exactly what I help people with. This perfectionistic thinking, this wanting to numb because of pressure. I had been a non-drinker because I went into recovery in 2007. I'd been a non-drinker for so long. I didn't see the correlations. And then when I did, I had to write about it.
What caused you to like have that thought, or if you even remember, like what triggered you to have that thought, like, oh, maybe I could try this again. I've got control over cravings and I'm disciplined. You can say no. So like what caused you to be like, yeah, let me test this out again?
Yeah, great question. And I definitely remember because I hyper focused on that question.
Mm.
That's in the book. The thought was, so it was 2020. We moved to a new state. I had always lived in the same state. I didn't consider that moving out of state would be a big deal because my husband and I are very positive. We're very high growth. We're go-getters, right? The subtitles of my book are Show Up for the Life You Want. So we show up when we don't want to. We show up. We have grit. And I'm saying all that not to brag, but to say that that has everything to do with what happened. Is in 2020 we were brand new empty nesters. The third kid left for college, and we decided to move. And I just thought everything was so easy. I thought that, not that it was super hard, it was, but three teenagers all at once at one point. There were lots of challenges, right? Being a mom is challenging. We also lived on a small farm with horses, and I drove the tractor. I had a lot to manage. I had a lot I was taking care of, and I didn't really consider that. I just thought, this is just always what I've done. This is what I do. We get stuff done. When we moved, it was like, oh, okay, what do I want to do?
Because you have
We
all this
moved
free
off the
time.
farm. Yeah, we had a small yard that was very manageable. I thought, well, what do people do as empty nesters? And my husband loves golf. So I thought, he's played golf for 40 years. He loves it. He's very good at it. I just never participated because I had stuff to do.
Right.
Right. So all of a sudden I started hanging out. I thought, well, I'll learn golf. And I started hanging out with him at the country club in our neighborhood. And it just was a whole different way of life than I had been living. I learned to play golf. I realized I don't really like golf, but I kept playing it anyway. And drinking's a big part of golf.
And your
Um,
husband.
my husband drinks, but he's not a big drinker. In recovery groups, we call that being a normie. He's a normie. He's a normal drinker. He could drink half a beer and leave it there. He doesn't drink very much at
Okay.
all. For him, golf is his sport. Right.
Okay.
It's like how I like running. It's not about the drinking I'm sharing more with you than I do share in the book. So I'm sharing
Oh,
a lot right now, but I think if I had a drink, this would be easier. Maybe I'm supposed to be able to drink. And I thought, why did I stop drinking again? Why was that 14 years ago? Why did I stop? And that's how the brain works. I forgot
yeah.
all the reasons. And they tell you in recovery, don't forget these things. Keep in a group, keep in recovery, keep in your sober community. And the reason we do that is so we do not forget these things. We say in the group, we say we have a big forgetter. So our forgetter doesn't get going. Well, my forgetter forgot. And so I thought, it's just so silly. I'm so good at all these things. Surely I could be good at drinking. I can do this,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I think maybe I just numbed because I had kids, or I was under a ton of pressure, not just from the kids. And I don't want to say like I drink because of the kids. Like I have wonderful
I
kids and
mean,
love being a mom. It's a lot of freaking pressure though.
yeah, it's almost like nice to hear people say things like that, blaming it on them or anything, but it's like it is a ton of pressure when did you have your business at that point?
I was a stay-home mom and doing some
Okay.
counseling on the side, mostly through
Okay.
church, speaking at women's retreats, that type of thing. So
Okay.
didn't start the business until youngest was in high school. That's when I started the business.
Okay. Well, even still, like being a mom, just that by itself it is a lot of pressure and it's a lot of demand. Being a wife, right? That's a lot of demand. That's a lot of expectations, a lot of which may be or may have been your own expectations of yourself. But even still, that's like societally ingrained in us of like, this is how we should be showing up. And just that is a lot of pressure. So
Right.
I feel like that, again, that alone is like reason enough that a lot of people probably numb because
Yep.
we're maybe ignoring a lot of parts of ourselves that don't really fall within what's acceptable or what's expected, right? And so there's the
That's
numbing
right.
of that. And then there's just the getting our mind off of all the ways that we're failing because as a mom, as a wife, probably as just a woman living life, we're always failing, quote unquote, at something, right? Or it feels that way. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't feel like there needs to be any excuse why
Right.
that
Yeah.
pressure.
And you mentioned societal pressure. I always thought, oh, that just doesn't affect me. I
Mm,
don't care. But it does. It affects all of us because, there's you probably have heard of this, but there's a big mommy drinking culture, right? I think some moms, especially if young kids, have figured out if we can get together and drink and let the kids play, this could take the load off. And if you're doing it in community, it seems okay, right? And so I didn't become part of that because I just knew that wasn't going to work for me. I mean, my kids have never seen me drunk. I got sober when they were babies. So that's a huge blessing. And you can imagine the stories I've heard of meetings over the years of people that didn't happen to and that did ruin relationships with their kids and their marriages. And next month I'll be married 29 years. We've
wow.
been through a lot, but we also have fantastic marriage. So There's a lot to be said about making a commitment and sticking to it, even when it's really, really hard. And my commitment was to living my life alcohol free. My commitment I made in 2007 was to be sober no matter what. And then when all those things I'd been holding together, I didn't need to hold them together anymore. I thought, wait, why was I doing that again? I think I could have a drink. That
Yeah.
sure would make golfing more fun,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of how it started. As simple as that. That is a big thing to pay attention to. It's that simple. Like one little thought can lead to a big decision like that. And for me, there's a saying people have that's it's much easier to stay sober than to get sober. And that's very true. The older you get, it's very hard to get sober again if you've been sober and then you go out or relapse, as some people call it. It's very hard to get it back. Because one, you know better. And for me, though, I just wanted it back fiercely. I just loved my life before. I realized right away, this is terrible. I don't like this. But it was hard. It was hard to get it back. And since I was in a brand new state, I didn't have my sober community and I
Yeah.
couldn't find one right away. And that's what I'll be doing too with this new book. When you buy the book, you can get into my community group. It's just between now and launch day. And it's not another online sober group because we have enough of those. It's just me in there. It's anonymous. It's me helping you get plugged into, if you want to find sobriety or recovery, what is the best group for you? It's a little helping hand, kind of one I needed when I moved to a new state and didn't know where my community was anymore. So
Mm.
as soon as I got back into a sober community, it became easy. That took a while though. And that's why I wrote the book, is so that is the good thing that came out of it, is I wrote
Yeah.
it all down.
Like one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you about this is because, again, we're talking about these high achievers. We're talking about self-sabotage. We're talking about habits. And so, like, how do you relate the habit of being sober, or the opposite, the habit of drinking, or really any sort of something that you would compare to an addiction, to habits that we have in our entrepreneurial life, or habits that we have in our business, or habits that we have just in our job, that our high pressure job that we're working at? How is it the same, or how is it different?
Yeah, great question. Two things. One is I love your title, Audacious, right? So audacity is being bold. And to me, that is when you make a commitment, stick to the commitment no matter what. And we can do that in business, or if it's a commitment to not drink or to not eat sugar for a certain amount of time, or whatever that commitment is. And there's a whole chapter in my book about that too, commitment over craving, right? So
Mm.
writing down that commitment, like be committed to that, because you will have cravings. You will not feel like doing whatever business thing you need to do that day, or even waking up that day. I mean, I know you too. We are very disciplined people. So I think sometimes us high achievers we're very driven, we're very growth oriented. So most of the time, naturally, we do want to wake up and hit the ground running and go to work and do things. But what do you do? That's not going to be 100% true throughout your whole life. So what do you do when that's not true? When you don't feel like it? And that's why we have to decide ahead of time. And that's what I didn't do with sobriety. I had good reasons to not drink while I was raising the kids and to stay in my sober group and all that. But when all those reasons were gone, I hadn't written down the bigger why. What is the bigger why? And so I think in business, we can definitely set that goal, have that vision of where we want to go. When I work with entrepreneurs, we have a business vision, right? So we'll do 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years. And it's written down. And that doesn't mean that can't change, but the bigger outcome of what you want for that, your business vision, that's most likely, I hardly ever see that change. How we're going to get to it, which I call strategy, that's going to change, right? But what I see time and time again, and what I coach people through, is when you're going toward your outcome and something doesn't work, high achievers tend to ditch the whole outcome instead of just ditching that one tactic to get the outcome. So I say, tweak the tactics, right? Like, let's change that one thing that didn't work, but let's not dump the whole goal.
Yeah. That's a really good point, I think. I mean, when you don't have support, when you don't have a coach, when you don't have a partner who's supportive of what you're doing and you get to communicate to that person about it all the time or whatever, when you don't have that community, I feel like it's very easy for people to, as soon as that first thing goes wrong, whoop, that's a sign that this whole thing is not meant to be. I'm not going to continue. That's it. It's too hard.
That's right.
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's also mindset. It's like, or I guess like just knowing that, right? Knowing that you're going to hit a bunch of hurdles and being
Mhm.
ready for that, or knowing that you're going to have these tactics, as you call them, in place. And that may not be the right next step. You may have to then go back and do this step again, and then go in
Mhm.
that direction and then go back. Right. So yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, and high achievers plateau, right? Plateau is normal. And
Yeah.
a lot of times that plateau happens when we're just 2 millimeters from the goal, right? It's like, don't stop before you get to the pot of gold. You've probably heard it called the 2 millimeter shift or
I haven't heard that.
so it's like, let's say we're 98%, like we're
Yeah.
living at an excellent level. Like
Yeah.
we're just churning and burning and getting stuff done and we're at 98%. But how do you go from great to extraordinary? That part is 2% because you already really did the 98%. So it's that 2 millimeter shift where achievers especially get stuck and plateau and either throw in the towel altogether, get a whole new outcome, whole new business plan, ditch it because we're used to success. So we think, oh,
Yeah.
this means I'm not succeeding. No, it means you got to grit your way through the plateau and keep going forward until you get to the outcome that you want. Yeah. And for me, going back to your question, was 14 years, I successfully had this sobriety, but then I was like, wait, I plateaued and I wasn't in touch with my bigger why. And so I threw in the towel. I don't think I threw in the towel. I think I didn't like relapse on a low point. I relapsed from a high point. And that's important to note, right? Like I thought, well, this is great. It could even be better. And
Mm,
and it's fine that it wasn't. It's nothing to, that's why I call the book Brace Yourself. It's nothing to beat
yeah.
yourself up over. It's just that didn't work. Okay. Yes, sobriety is the best way for me to live. That principle right there, and all these things I write down in the book, like there's questions, places to answer. It's very written in
Like,
my coach. It's very interactive.
yeah.
And so you get to write down your why and ask yourself all these same questions so that when you do plan, you can keep moving forward and not throw in the towel.
I just wrote down the question, how do you identify when you're at a plateau and only like very close to your goal versus when maybe it really just isn't working?
Right. No, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
That's when you hear it. So stay in the tactics at first, right? So at first, I would suggest don't ditch the goal, stay in strategy and keep asking with all those things. Is this moving me toward my end result, the
Yeah.
outcome I want or not?
Yeah.
If not, ditch it, try a different strategy and keep doing that, not, worrying about what doesn't work. If you've exhausted that
Yeah.
and none of that's worked, then reevaluate the end result or the end outcome. Just really stay in strategy first before getting rid of that commitment that you made.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Well,
Good.
I was just gonna say, do you know who Jimmy Chin is? He's a
No,
filmmaker. He's an extreme athlete, rock climber, and kind
no.
of a nerd about him. He makes documentaries. He's a National Geographic photographer. Anyway,
What? Wow.
he says, and extreme athletes are big on this whole concept too, like stick to the commitment because, and in rock climbing, my youngest is a rock climber. And so the route they take to get up the rock is called a
Uh-huh.
problem.
It's called a
And
problem.
it's called a problem. And I
Okay.
didn't know that until he started
I
rock
didn't know
climbing,
that.
my son.
Yeah.
And that makes, because if you're on the rock and you're figuring out the best route,
You're
like,
solving a
I mean, I
problem.
guess you could go down, but then that defeats the whole point of wanting to climb. So you committed to make it to the top.
Ooh.
So the problem's going to change. And
Yeah.
that you put the peg in here, it doesn't work. Okay, I've got to put it over here. It's just, I love that metaphor for it, for business too.
I like that metaphor. Yeah, that's great. And actually I remembered what I was gonna say. It wasn't a question. It was like something I noticed with a lot of my clients, because the financial strategy that I teach is one I didn't develop. It's from TARDIS Wealth Strategies. A woman named Tanisha developed it. But what it is like this entirely different financial strategy than what people are used to, because everybody's sort of been taught about money the same way. And this is a very different way. And so there's like a large learning curve, right? Kind of like climbing halfway up the mountain, up the face of the rock, whatever. And so then a lot of times people will start to get a little more comfortable, a little bit more confident, and they'll take a bit of a risk. And a lot of times they'll see, and that risk is actually something that they've like really wanted to do, and they finally got the courage to do it. And then boom, three things go wrong. Right.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of times it's three things. The problems come in three. And so then at that moment where they're like, okay, am I just going to stop? Am I going to give up on this? Or am I going to kind of take this as another hurdle that I need to climb over? And I've seen it in so many people, and it's almost the exact same thing. It's the same pattern where it's like they finally take this bit of a risk that they've really been wanting to do. They've built their courage, and then boom, they get knocked back 3 steps and they're at that decision again. And so now that's what I've started to tell people. I was like, this is fine. This is just the universe throwing a
Yes.
couple rocks in your path because the universe is testing to see if you really want this.
Right.
Right. It's like that peg in the face of the wall and it falls out. Right. And you have to decide, am I going to go back down, or am I going to try to find another hole to get this peg in and climb up? Hey guys, here's what most people do when they want to build wealth. They download another freebie, they try to piece together random advice from TikTok and YouTube, and end up stuck, overwhelmed, inconsistent, and spinning their wheels. But that is not how you create true freedom. If you're ready for something smarter, deeper, and actually aligned with your life, book an Audacious Wealth breakthrough call with me. This is not cookie cutter coaching. This is where we look at your gifts, your vision, and your numbers. And we build a bold, personalized blueprint to help you turn your income into impact, your time into freedom, and your ideas into legacy. You've done the DIY hustle. Now it's time for strategy that fits like it was made for you, because it was. Spots are limited, so head to the show notes and claim yours now. Yeah, and it's so fascinating when you are dealing with like a lot of people who are going through similar situations. It's like you can see these patterns so clearly. But when you're the one in it, obviously, you're like, I'm gonna die. Let me just go back down.
I know. Yeah. When clients come and that happens, I say, "Ah, that's so great. You're exactly where you're supposed to be."
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's how it's working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the universe is noticing you.
Right.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about perfectionism and self-sabotage?
Yes. So I'm a coach. I'm not a psychiatrist or licensed psychologist, but perfectionism can work in our favor, right? It can be adaptive or maladaptive. And so when it causes us to self sabotage, it's maladaptive. The other, when it's adaptive, I would just call that being a driven achiever or having a growth mindset or wanting things a certain way, right? I think that's why I end up with a lot of performers as clients. My son, for example, he's an artist. We've worked a lot. He's 26 now, but especially when he was young and as a teenager, we worked a lot on perfectionism and how if something's not perfect, it doesn't mean it's trash. I mean, as a little boy, I mean, he's very talented artist, naturally when he was little, he would just be drawing and then he would just be like a disheveled genius and rip up the paper. I mean, at 5 years old and throw it in the trash can.
Yeah.
Right. And that to me is such a picture of perfectionism that's going to lead to self-sabotage, right? If it's not perfect, it's trash. I think that there's a difference between being a high achiever and a perfectionist, I think a high achiever will set a goal, do all the strategy we just talked about, like coaching strategy to achieve that goal. A perfectionist will not tweak the tactics. They will say, if I'm not going to get this goal in the exact way I want or envisioned it, I'm not even going to bother. Right. And so that is maladaptive. That's not good. That's self-sabotage. That will lead to anxiety and depression and all kinds of things, addictions, numbing, checking out, because we can't, as humans, there's no room for grace there, and it's not natural, right? And so one of the coaching tools that's in the new book to help people with this is it's like about high standards. When you set an outcome, a goal, like when you establish this is the result I want, ask yourself, what has to happen to make that happen? And if what has to happen is beyond your control, like I'll use this example in the book. This is just an easy example for me to explain it. If I say, what I want is to be happy, right? Then I would ask myself, what has to happen for me to be happy? Well, if for me to be happy, I need to be included in things and people need to like me. Well, now I set an unattainable standard because those things are outside of my control. I can't control what people think of me. If I change that to stuff in my control, like for me to be happy, I need to work out every day, journal, let's say. Now I set a standard I can achieve because it's within my control. And
and also like flipping those exact things to things that you can control. Like if it's to be included, right? My first thought was find a community where you have more things in common, where it's like you're doing things that you both enjoy doing, right? You have more of a chance of being included in those cases. But again, that's within your control to find different communities that appreciate you.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and also knowing no matter what, even in the greatest communities, we can't control what other people think of us. But yeah, so I think people set rules for these standards that they have. And it's not that the standard is wrong, it's that the rules aren't serving them. The rules they have for reaching their goals or getting what they want are not serving them. So we work to change those rules and take them down a notch.
With your decision to say, like, I need to be sober, like how I am when I do X, Y, and Z, that's a boundary. So the only next solution is for me to be 100% not involved in that whatsoever. In this case, drinking, right? But like same thing with self-sabotage. Like, how do I know when I am a breaking point of self-sabotage where I need to change my behavior versus I'm just holding myself accountable. I'm just pushing myself. I'm just being tough on myself and trying to be disciplined. Where is that line between like harmful and helpful, I guess?
Right. That's a good question for us to be asking ourselves, and it will be different for everybody.
And every circumstance.
I do think we need really good friends that are at our level of growth. If we don't have a coach, I think we need good friends at our same level of growth to help us navigate that. Drinking specifically is really different than, say, like if I set some health goals, right? Like maybe I set goals that I'm not going to eat sugar, but maybe there was a birthday party and I wanted to have a piece of cake, right?
Yeah.
So that's really different because everyone's going to have a different set of rules, like the rules we just talked about for that. Like for me personally, I can't have those extreme, like I can't set myself up for failure because I will want the piece of cake at the
Oh,
birthday.
that's me with shopping.
Yeah, or shopping. Right?
If I don't want to spend money, I cannot go to a mall because I know if I'm in the mall, I will spend more money than I wanted to spend.
Right.
So if it's like one thing that I need, nope, just better order it online, better not put myself in that situation.
So you might be asking, like your question really might be, how do we know when a helpful soother has turned into an addiction? And it's when it's affecting when our life is not heading, because of that behavior, our life now is not heading in the direction we want it to be heading in.
Okay.
So that's not going to happen if I have the cake at a birthday party. That is, for me,
Yeah.
it happened with drinking. So I'm not anti-alcohol. Like, I mean, my friends all drink. I'm not
Yeah.
anti-alcohol for me, because the way alcohol works with age, and as you get, the more you drink, you can't really reverse it. Like, we call it like being pickled. So like once a cucumber becomes a pickle, it can't turn back into a cucumber.
Oh,
So if
okay.
someone's sober, it's like a progressive situation. So like, I didn't drink for 14 years. I thought, oh, I think I don't have a problem. I could probably have a drink. Well, I didn't just start binge drinking. I did it in a, I don't know what normal is, but a normal fashion. And it was just like people had said, it was worse than the last time.
Like,
It did,
meaning your body felt worse?
it felt worse, but I got really, would get drunk and black out, and
Oh,
it was
wow.
terrible. And so that really
Yeah.
is, now we're getting into like, what is alcoholism?
Yeah.
But it is a condition that is really different than a lot of other things. So I think it's,
Well, but there's also, again, there's nuances there because, again, our bodies are changing, our
Mhm.
minds are changing, but our bodies are also changing. Like, I've been working out more this year than I have in previous years. And I've noticed that alcohol affects me so much more strongly now than it did a year ago. So, like, now I have one short glass of champagne, I'm like tipsy already.
right.
And so if
Yeah.
I were to have 3 of those or 4 of those, I'm, gone, which
Right.
wasn't the case before. So now I have to adjust my habits and I have to be, self-aware enough, I guess, to notice these things and then to make appropriate changes. So I think there's shades of all of this too, and it's
Mhm.
just about, again, those commitments to ourselves, because as we were talking about this too, I was thinking, like, with my shopping example and your cake example, if we all like, and to answer my question, how do we know when we are kind of crossing that line into self-sabotage? I think it's also when you make that commitment and you notice that you keep justifying yourself flaking out on that commitment. So
Mhm.
if I tell myself I'm going to go to the mall and I'm going to buy the one thing, and I come back having spent $150, $200 or whatever it is more than what I spent, if I do that multiple times, then at some point I have to hold myself accountable and be like, yo, you're not doing what you said you're going to do. Right. If I tell myself that I want to stop sugar and I go and I keep making excuses and rationalizing why I can eat the cake at this birthday party multiple times. But then again, your book's title is Grace Yourself, right? Again, the question is like, how much grace do you give yourself
Right.
and
And
where do
it's
you draw the line?
right. And it's grace yourself. Like, for me, I going out or
Mhm.
relapsing, brace yourself in order to get back on track. So I think a great question to ask, to know where that line is, for, because it is different for everybody, is, have you become powerless over that thing? Have you become powerless over alcohol, shopping, or sugar?
That's
And has your life become unmanageable?
That's those are strong questions.
Yes, if you've ever, the people that do 12-step work, that's the first step. We were powerless over this thing and our lives had become unmanageable. And in the book too, it does have my spirituality. I am Christian, so the book has Christian elements in it. And grace is, when I speak of it in the book, it is unmerited favor. So it's God's grace. So it's
Okay.
God's grace for us, that no matter what, our self-worth is, whether we are addicted or sober, our worth doesn't change. We're just as valuable. And that's not because of anything we do or don't do. It
Mhm.
is just because, in the case of my faith, it is just because of God. So that is why it's titled that. You have the right to do whatever you want. You could go
Right.
become a drug addict tomorrow if you wanted to, and you would still be just as valuable and worthy, and God would love you just as much, in my belief.
Right.
It's just that I don't think that's what you want. So when
Yeah.
I'm coaching people, I'm coaching people to get the life they want.
Right.
And so whether you get that life or not is not going to change your worth. It's just going to make it more fun while you're here on earth.
Exactly. Oh, but all of those things are so entangled, right? Your self-worth, your habits, right? And so sometimes maybe the habits are stronger than the self-worth, or the lack of self-worth, which maybe is the exact same thing, is stronger than maybe your commitment. And so it's like you can't get yourself to change those habits, which is again coming back to why coaching is so important, because you need somebody to be like, hey, you said you wanted to save $10,000 this year. Why the heck did you just go spend $300 at Victoria's Secret? You need somebody to point out how you are rationalizing and justifying the things that are not leading you towards getting the thing that you said you wanted. Yeah, that's coaching is so powerful.
Right. And and community is even more powerful, especially if we're talking about an addiction. I don't believe people can get out of addiction without community.
I want to ask maybe that, or just flip that kind of statement into something else. How do you feel like having community of, and maybe this isn't a factor, you tell me, but people who really understand you, really get you, or are empathetic to what you're dealing with, how do you think that supports people in making change?
Right. Well, there's like great value in knowing you're not alone. I think humility is a big part of that because we tend to, as humans, I think if without community, we tend to think our problem is unique or we're special. So I'll say, you are special, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Right? We've got to have humility and share our stories, say what we're embarrassed to say within a community. We don't have to go on podcasts and say it, but you have to be in a community of people who they don't have to have your exact same story, but I think the shared goal is even more important than that.
Ooh,
I say that in the book. Like in my sober community, we all have the same goal. It's very specific to alcohol, and we all have committed to not drinking alcohol. And we do that one day at a time. However, we all know each other's stories, and the stories are really different. I mean, I was a very high achieving housewife raising great kids,
yeah.
right? And the person next to me, their story, they probably got a DUI, went to jail, lost the relationship with their kids. None of the differences don't matter. The similarities matter. And the similarity is that we share the goal of not drinking. And that's super valuable in business too. You're going, especially
Yes.
like you're working in a small business, you all have different personalities. What is the business vision? You all
Yeah.
share the same goal. So let's focus on that and where we want to go instead of focusing on everyone's little quirks and
Yeah.
who said this in an email or that.
No,
And
that's really, really good because I'm in the process of really trying to hone and build a community that kind of like what we were talking about before, that I just feel really good in, because that's been something that I've kind of dealt with here and there. Is like, I feel a lot of times like I'm the outsider in some of the communities that I belong to. And it makes me feel disempowered. It makes me feel like, why am I trying to do this when everybody else is doing that? Right. So finally, I was like, oh, I need to seek out more of the type of people that would make me feel good to be around. But then I had this question kind of swirling in my head about values. Like, is it only about values? Do these people have to have and share all the same values as I do? Because then I don't like that either, because then I'm just kind of in a pool of my own, I'm like sitting in a bathtub of my own whatever.
right.
I still want new ideas. I want new perspectives. I want differing opinions. I want all that. And so then I was kind of confused. I was like, how do I get that? But then also have all of these other things in common. And it's the shared goal, or a
Right.
similar goal, at least.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what it is. So thank you
That's
for
right.
making that distinction for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same as tweak the tactics, but don't ditch the outcome, right? Like
Yeah.
focus on the similarities, not the differences. And the similarity is the shared goal.
Yeah.
The end result, not where people want to go for lunch or not.
Right. Okay. That's awesome. Thank you. You did mention in the info that I asked you for that you were open to talking about finance. So I'm just going to ask you, should be a quick question. What is the best financial advice you have ever received as an entrepreneur, as a business owner?
I would say the advice came before I was a business owner. My family, we own properties, so I grew up learning how to manage and invest in properties. And so the advice for generations was you don't have debt and the power of money over time, and have three buckets. Like one's your conservative bucket, that's the power of money over time, that's just going to keep snowballing. One's your dream bucket, that's for fun because you have to have fun. And then one's the higher risk bucket that you will, for me at least, it's different for everybody. Once you're at a certain level where you're comfortable, have some that you can do some higher risk investments. For me personally, that bucket is what I keep in there is what I will not be devastated if I lose because,
Right. What's something, if you don't mind sharing, that you do have in your high risk bucket?
You mean like specific in the investment strategy?
Well, because I was thinking somebody could consider starting a business to be in their high risk bucket, right? So
Right.
like I was
Well,
curious
that's,
what that means for
yeah,
you.
that's right. Well, right now I'm investing a lot in book launch.
Okay.
I'm
Like,
working for a publisher for the first time, so it's a risk. It's a new imprint, and so we're doing a lot of things for the first time, which is fabulous. We have like Forefront Books, which is a very established publisher behind us. A lot of the things I'm doing is because I love these people on my team and I believe in them. And at the same time, when you do anything for the first time, it's a little bit risky. I've never done it this way.
and I don't know how personal you got in your first book, but this book sounds like it's a much more vulnerable personal journey for
yeah,
you. So does that feel a little bit
that
risky too?
counts. Yes. So that is great. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, the first book, I really was safe, very
Okay.
low risk. I used client examples, permission from the clients, and changed their names.
Yeah.
I told maybe one baby story about myself and it wasn't risky. This is a huge risk, very uncomfortable for me to
Yeah.
share that I used to be addicted to alcohol and to write
But
about it in a book. That's a huge risk.
I'm not a psychologist, right? But just in my personal opinion, I feel like all of us have some kind of an addiction to something. It's
Right.
the gym, it's Netflix, it's we're codependent, so we're addicted to other people. You know what I mean? Like, I admire you for sharing this because I think there's so many various ways that people can relate it to it. I read a book that is a bit more religious. I'm not a very religious person. I can substitute that name out for something that means something to me. And so
Right.
same thing with like your book. It's not necessarily about the thing, about the alcohol. I mean, I know for you, like writing the book, that is what it's about. But like for everybody else reading it, it could be whatever they feel like is a bit of a crutch for them. And it might inspire them to be courageous enough to get rid of it. So
Right.
I admire that a lot. The riskier, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, and oh yes, and it's definitely a relatable book. You do not have to be
Yeah.
addicted to alcohol to relate to it. It's
Yeah.
relatable for any human, really. Going back to what I would put in the high risk bucket, I never put anything in there, or I try not to put anything in there that I wouldn't be uncomfortable losing. And that's the same thing with the book. Like if I did ask myself, what's the worst that could happen by me telling this story? Well, I'm going to still have my friends that love me because they already know the story. So maybe some strangers don't like me or come at me or have, that's not risky for me.
This
I
book
can
wasn't for
afford to lose
them.
that. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
afford to lose that. So the high risk bucket is what I'm willing to risk and I can also afford to lose.
Love it. And
And over
again,
time, with
congrats.
age, hopefully more can go into that bucket,
Yeah.
right? Because whether that's knowledge or finances, as
Mhm.
we age, hopefully we've snowballed the low risk bucket so we
Yeah.
have financial independence when we're
Yeah. I love that. That's great. You mentioned it when we first started, but what does the word audacity mean to you?
bold. Being bold. I love, yeah, I mentioned my subtitles are how to show up dot,
Just
dot,
like
dot.
showing
So
up. Yeah.
showing up. It's showing up when you don't want to. It's easy to show up when we want to. And as high achievers, we usually want to. There's sometimes, like, my husband and I were grieving the loss of a very dear friend in the last 2 weeks. He died 2 weeks ago. And then
Oh,
last
yeah.
week, our youngest son got married. So it was like very low, very
Oh,
high. Our first kid
yeah.
to get married. And so we kind of put those in buckets. Like, we grieved and then we celebrated. Then when the celebration was over, we grieved some more. And it's just like, it was my husband's, I was friends because he was friends with my husband, but they've been friends since they were very young. And it was a real blow. But I watched my husband be in grief and then show up, and he's leading a conference right now in the East Coast.
Oh,
He's showing up.
for his commitments.
He's showing up for his commitments.
Yeah.
And I know he doesn't feel like it, and he's blessing people. I think practice being in contribution more than being consumers. And so that's not always easy. That's
Mm.
something we committed to as young people when we first got married, and it's not always easy.
No, well, it's again with like society kind of guiding you or pushing you down a certain road, right? They're pushing us to be consumers. So the fact that you are making a conscious intention to be more in contribution, I really love that. And that is inspiring to me because that is ultimately what I want too. I want to give more than I am trying to take.
And you are, by having this podcast, you are. So I should clarify, I don't mean that, I mean, certainly financially, but I more mean it with our time and talents.
Yeah. I
And
think it's all of the above, right?
you're
What,
doing this
whatever you can
podcast,
do.
you're serving people, that is contribution.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And same to you for being here and sharing your story. Okay, so please, would you again reiterate both of your books and let people know again, if there's any specific instruction how to find them, and then also if there's any other ways or resources that you want to share, ways for them to contact you and resources.
Right. Thank you. So first off, my website's chrisjanssencoaching.com, and I keep that updated with everything, all the ways to get in touch with me. My first book, I actually have it right here, Living All In, How to Show Up for the Life You Want, is on Amazon. The second book, Grace Yourself, How to Show Up for the Sober Life You Want, it launches March 18th, 2025, where books are sold. You can get it anywhere. The exciting thing though is, for a limited time, I have a limited number of VIP upgrade packages available if you pre-order. So I'm trying to sell as many pre-orders as humanly
Yeah.
possible of the hardback, because that really makes a difference when you're launching a book.
Okay.
So in order to do that, I've created some packages. I'm offering some one-on-one coaching. I'll do a virtual workshop for your group. These are when you pre-order the book in bulk. You can have my master class. I created a workbook too.
Wow.
So it can be used in book club. And then I also created an asset where I'll lead your book club for you. So all the details for all those things you can go to my website, chrisjanssencoaching.com. Also, you could go to graceyourselfbook.com and read directly how to get those packages, because it's a lot of things I'm offering on my part. It's a limited number of packages available. And then it's only between now and March.
Now in March. What month are we in?
When we launch.
So October, November, December, January, February, March. Okay, you've got 6 months.
Yep.
That's more than enough time, but that's
Yep,
awesome.
more than
That's
enough time.
That's a lot of things that you're
It's a
offering.
lot of things.
Yeah.
And I'm excited though. I mean, it's all stuff I love doing. And
Yeah.
I just think the more people I can walk through this, so it'll be fantastic for groups, like even youth groups or a women's group, a men's group, all group of colleagues, book clubs. Yeah, it's exciting.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing everything that you shared. It was awesome. I can't wait to listen back to it. And yeah,
Thanks for having me on.
you're
Love
welcome.
Bye.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of the Audacious Founder Podcast, Being Bold in Business. If this sparked something in you, if it made you think bigger, dream louder, or take one bold step forward, then don't let it stop here. The real transformation, that happens off the feed. Head to the show notes and drop your name on our email list, because our community gets the unfiltered tools, strategies, and stories that I don't share anywhere else. Audacious moves only. I'll see you in your inbox.